Howdy, folks. Video here today about finding a thesis, specifically for our literary essays, but hopefully you'll be able to use these ideas on any paper that you're writing for any class. So if you're taking notes, you should be taking notes. I'm asking you to take notes. Is make sure you have this frame written down in your notes so you kind of know here's what we're going to walk through in terms of what this video is covering. So pause this, jot those down so you have the headlines down, and then let's move on. So our learning targets for today, number one, I want you to be able to practice writing a thesis for a literary analysis essay. But I also want you to be able to evaluate what a workable thesis is. I'm not going to say we're maybe not have our finger down on like what a perfect thesis is yet, but I want you to figure out some checks that you can put in to say, this is good enough to start, right? This is something that I can work with. So let's start off with a reminder of what a thesis is. And it's going to be, I'm going to call it our controlling idea. It's usually a sentence or two, usually it's just one sentence, that's a statement of whatever the focus is for your essay or your paper, right? So everything else that we write in this paper, intros, conclusions, body paragraphs, they're all going to point to your thesis statement. So it is the most important sentence in however long of an essay you end up writing, because everything focuses back to that. It's like your controlling idea. It's what you're trying to prove to me. So it's the most important. It may not be the longest sentence, but keep that in mind. Everything that I'm going to write in this essay is going to be related in some way back to my thesis. So I often call this our controlling idea, and there's three characteristics that all theses have. Number one, they're specific, right? And when I say specific, really think about getting to complex ideas and insightful ideas, right? Look at a text and see how different things interact and see what kind of insight I can pull by connecting these dots that I'm finding along the way. So, for example, you couldn't say The Great Gatsby is a book about wealth and money. That's not a thesis statement. That's just an observation of facts, right? There's no complex and insightful inference being made there. It also needs to be arguable. So think about like those interpretive questions that we've been asking in class, which means there's an answer in the text, but maybe there's more than one right answer, and we could look at this from different angles and perspectives. And lastly, it needs to be defendable. So we need to be able to support our ideas with evidence that we find within that text. So those are the three key ideas: specific, arguable, and defendable, that all thesis statements must be. So as I'm creating these, I might kind of go through a progression of thought as I'm working to get something more specific and more arguable. So I might start with something like this. Everything Stuck to Him is a story about relationships, right? It's about two young kids, at 17 and 18, get married and have kids. Like, holy cow, talk about jumping into the deep end of relationships. That's a start. That's what that story is about. But this is not a specific or arguable statement. Like, it's just a fact that this story is about relationships. I might change that to say Everything Stuck to Him shows its readers the difficulties of maturing into an adult. There it starts to get arguable, right? Because I could say, no, that's not what it's showing us. It's talking to us about, some other idea. Um, Plausible arguability there. But it's still a little bit vague, right? If I'm going to talk about the difficulties of maturing into adult, I'm definitely not talking about the entire difficulties of maturing into adult, because this story is not about taxes or self-management skills or the fact that it's really hard to get up and go to work sometimes and you don't have a mom or a dad telling you to get up and go to work, right? It's not dealing with those types of things. It's talking about different difficulties of being an adult. So let's revise this one more time to get to something way more specific and defendable. Raymond Carver explores how maturity, or the lack of it, relates to personal relationships and self-image. Now I've specifically mentioned here are the things that it's going to be difficult to do and grow in without maturity, right? It's really hard to build those personal relationships without maturity. It's really hard to adjust your image if you're not mature, or maybe there's some sort of relationship there that I need to expand and explore. So this is definitely maybe not its final form, but this is a workable thesis that I could start working with. Covers all three of my criteria. So how do we get to this point? What I'm going to recommend, my process for coming up with a thesis is, take a look at those ideas that you jotted down last lesson about whatever text we were reading. And then I want you to do a quick write for maybe one or two of those. Spend 3 to 5 minutes just like brain dumping all of your thoughts about that topic, right? Doesn't even have to be about the book. Just what do you think about topic X, Y, or Z? And then play the so what game. So after writing for about 3 minutes, first check yourself and think, okay, did I actually write for 3 minutes, or did I write for 30 seconds and then get bored and distracted by my phone? If you can't stay focused on something for 3 minutes, you need to pick a different topic, right? Or you need to change the situation that you're in, because I want you to write about something that's powerful to you, right? And we're talking about literature, even though this literature is 100 years old, some of it. Um, there's always something that we can talk about that's maybe meaningful. There's something about that we've got to get to, because if you don't care about this essay, I'm not going to care about this essay, and then we're in trouble, right? So make sure that you are finding some interest in that 3 to 5 minutes, because that's another reason why we write essays, is so you spend more than however long a Snapchat or TikTok video is, or you spend more than 256 characters thinking about an idea that's probably worth thinking about, right? If we're talking about how to pursue happiness in your life, that deserves maybe a good couple days of thought before you're like, I got this figured out, moving on with my life. Cool. Um, so after you play that so what game and you feel like, yep, this does matter, this is kind of interesting, how did this author or this book get me to think about blank? Answer some of those questions, and then try to write an arguable, specific, and defendable thesis statement. And once you have one written, these are the 6 questions that I want you to check. Number one, does it matter to me? Right? Again, that's one of the reasons why we write essays, is hopefully to explore some thoughts and ideas that are important to you. If it doesn't interest you, pick something else, because I guarantee you there's got to be something there that is interesting. Second one is, does it respond to the prompt? If your teacher gives you a specific writing task and you don't end up writing about that, there's a problem there. I want to make sure that we're matching our ideas to what it is we need to be doing. So make sure that your thesis is actually helping you answer that question. Then go through our 3 criteria. Is it arguable, specific, and is there enough evidence to defend my idea? And lastly, is this actually addressing what I want other people to think and feel about a text, or just about life in general? So here's a couple of examples. Here's one thesis that I came up with for Everything Stuck to Him. And I went through this and I liked it. It was interesting to me. It was arguable. I thought it was specific, but I didn't think I had enough evidence to defend it based on the story, right? I personally like this idea of sacrificing one's own identity in order to become better for yourself. I think there's this cycle of self sacrifice and growth that we all go through in our lives. Um, so even though I thought it was interesting, I didn't think there was enough evidence in the text for me to back up that idea. So I scratched that one. Went back, changed my topic. So I went from talking about loss of self and service to others to maturity's role in relationships, another kind of theme and topic that I thought was brought up in Everything Stuck to Him. And I came up with this. And this one checked all my boxes. All 6 I could answer yes to. Um, cool. So final thought about theses is that these are never a one and done sentence. I don't think there's ever been a time in my life where I've written a thesis and been like, this is perfect, I'm never changing this. Because as you write, as you think, as you gather evidence and outline and organize, your ideas change, right? You start making new connections, and you might adjust specifically what it is you're talking about. And maybe the adjustment is slight, or maybe it's like a complete change in belief or thought. But it's okay to do that revision. In fact, it's necessary to do that revision, because your first draft is and should be different from your final draft, and that's good. That shows that you're growing in thought. Cool. Holler with any questions. Good luck, folks.